So when it comes to rounding, there's three main categories of, or three ways of kind of like, doing rounding. Number one is to round to the nearest unit or whole number, right? Unit or a whole number is essentially the same thing. Then you can either round to the nearest 10, nearest 100, or nearest 1,000. And that's the category number one. Category number two is when we start rounding to decimal places, one decimal place, two decimal places, and so on. And then perhaps the most important one for the IB program, for all the courses, is the rounding to significant figures. In this video, I will only talk about rounding to the nearest whole number and to the nearest decimal place, so number of decimal places. And I will leave the number of significant figures for a different video. So let's assume that we have this wonderful number to work with, the 2,918.5728. And we want to round this number to the nearest unit, to the nearest 10, to the nearest 100, and to the nearest 1,000. So I've already highlighted there where are the units and where are the tens and the hundreds and thousands. And we're going to write the answers right underneath. But the other thing that you need to take into consideration, that once you spot the level of rounding, then you're going to have to check the next digit. So let's just do an example here. So what we have here, we have that if we want to round to the nearest 1,000, then the thousands is the 2. So what we need to do, we need to essentially check the next digit after 2. And if the next digit is 5 or above, so 5, 6, 7, 8, or like here 9, then that means that the point of rounding, or the digit of rounding, in this case the thousands, is just going to go by 1 up. So the answer for this one would be the 2 becomes a 3, and then the rest of them will be replaced by zeros. So if we round this number to the nearest 1,000, the way to think about it is like whether your answer is going to be 3,000 or 2,000, right? Because the number is between 2,000 and 3,000. I guess this is a much better explanation. So let's move on to the hundreds. The hundreds is the second digit, is the 9. So the idea is my number closer to 2,900 or to 2,000 or to 3,000? Well, my number is 2,918, and of course the answer is going to be 2,900, right? But also if you try to incorporate the rule where you have the 2 digits that you are going to include, and then you check the next one is 1, which means the 9 is going to stay the same. Let's move on to the nearest tens, and the answer is going to be 2, 9, and then after the 1 we have 8, so it goes by 1 up, right? So it's going to be 2,920. And then finally to the nearest unit, I will start introducing another trick that I think is kind of like, always really, really helpful. So let me just show you how that works. So if you have 2,918.5728 and you want to round to the nearest unit, then the best way that I've seen so far is like put the number in a circle and then check the next digits. If the next digit is 5 or above, like in this case it's a 5, that means the number inside the circle is going to go by 1 up. If the number outside the circle, the next one to the right, is just not 5 or above, then you're lucky because the answer is already what you have inside the circle. So in my case here, because the first digit outside the circle or after 8 is the 5, which is like a 5 or above, so the answer for the units rounding for that specific number, it's going to be 2,919. So 2,919 otherwise. And that's because there's a 5 after the decimal point, which means 8 is going by 1 up. For the rounding to decimal places, I will do the same trick like the one we did before. So let's start here with the 1 decimal place. Put it in a circle, include the first number after the decimal point, which is a 5. Check the next one, which is a 7. That means the 5 is going to go by 1 up, So the final answer is going to be 2918.6. To 2 decimal places, same thing, but include this time the 2 numbers behind the decimal point. Check the next one. If it's a 5 or below, if it's below a 5, in this case it's a 2, then the answer is exactly what you have inside the circle, 2918.57. And then let's make one more to 3 decimal points. Here you are, or 3 decimal places. The next one is an 8, so what I see inside the circle is going to go by 1 up, so we have 2918.573, and that's it. Next video I'm going to talk about significant figures and how we can use significant figures to round both to whole numbers and tens and units as well as decimal places. That's it for now.